He didn't want a family. He just wanted a quiet life, far from people, far from pain. So when he agreed to marry into the coldest, most feared family in the land, everyone thought it was for money. Nobody knew the real reason. The moment he stepped into that courtyard, 3 pairs of eyes locked on him, not with hate, not with anger, with something he couldn't explain. The head of the family, a man everyone called the tyrant, took his hand and said one quiet sentence that changed everything. "You are not leaving this family, not now, not ever." He laughed it off. He thought it was a joke, but 3 days later he tried to walk out that gate, and what happened next made his heart stop. Because this family, they don't let go, not for anyone, not even for him. Before we go deeper into this story, if you love slow burn, emotional stories like this one, please hit subscribe. It really helps me keep making more stories like this one, just for you. Now, let's go back to where it all began. The morning sun moved slowly over the rooftops of the giant family estate, painting gold across tiled roofs that curved like waves frozen in time. Cherry blossoms drifted down in soft clusters, catching the light before settling on stone paths that had been swept clean before dawn. Servants moved quietly between the courtyards, careful not to make noise near the east wing, where the family head liked his mornings still. Lin Feng stood at the edge of the garden, holding a small wooden comb in his hand, turning it over and over between his fingers. He was 25 years old, though people often said he looked younger, with his soft round face and long dark hair that he always tied loosely instead of neat like the rest of the household. He wore simple white robes with a touch of pale pink at the collar, robes that marked him as someone new here, someone still learning the rules of this house. 3 days, that was how long he had been married into this family. He looked down at his own hands, still not used to the golden ring on his finger, still not used to any of this. Behind him, laughter rang out from the training yard, sharp and playful, 3 young men circling each other with wooden swords, their robes dark and heavy despite the morning heat. "You're starring again," a voice said beside him. Lin Feng turned and saw the youngest of the 3 brothers walking toward him, sword resting on his shoulder, a grin already forming on his face. His name was Wei Chen, and out of the 3 sons, he was the one who smiled the easiest, though something behind his eyes never quite matched his mouth. "I wasn't starring," Lin Feng said quickly. "You were starring at father," Wei Chen said, pointing his sword toward the far end of the courtyard where a tall man stood alone, arms folded, watching the training with sharp, unreadable eyes. "Everyone stares at father. Don't worry. He won't bite, probably." Lin Feng felt his face grow warm. He looked away, back toward the cherry blossoms, pretending he was only interested in the trees. The man watching from across the courtyard was Jian Hao, head of the Jian family, and the reason half the province spoke in hushed voices whenever his name came up. He was in his early 30s, though his presence made him feel older, heavier, like a mountain that had learned how to walk. His robes were dark red and black, trimmed in gold, and his hair was pulled up into a high knot held by a single silver hairpin. People called him cold. People called him ruthless. People said he had buried more enemies than friends. 3 days ago, Lin Feng had walked into this house believing all of it. He remembered the wedding hall, remembered the way silence had fallen over the guests the moment Jian Hao entered, remembered how even the servants had lowered their eyes to the floor. He remembered thinking, quietly, that he had made a terrible mistake. But then Jian Hao had taken his hand in front of everyone, and instead of the cold grip Lin Feng expected, it had been surprisingly gentle. Just for a second. Then it was gone, replaced by the same unreadable expression everyone feared. Now, 3 days later, Lin Feng still didn't understand what he had walked into. "Lin Feng," a deeper voice called. He turned, heart jumping slightly, to see Jian Hao approaching, his steps slow and deliberate, the kind of walk that made people move out of the way without being told. Wei Chen, still standing beside Lin Feng, immediately straightened his posture, the playful grin disappearing from his face. "Yes," Lin Feng said, trying to sound calm. You didn't eat breakfast, Jian Hao said. It wasn't a question, it was closer to an accusation. I wasn't hungry, Lin Feng said, which was a lie. He had been too nervous to eat, too aware of every servant watching him, every whisper following him through the halls. Jian Hao studied him for a long moment, eyes narrowing slightly as if he could see straight through the lie. Then, without another word, he reached out and placed something in Lin Feng's hand. A small rice cake, still warm, wrapped in a cloth. Eat, Jian Hao said simply, then turned and walked away, robe sweeping behind him like a shadow with a mind of its own. Lin Feng stood frozen, staring down at the rice cake in his palm. Wei Chen let out a low whistle beside him. Well, that's new. What do you mean? Lin Feng asked. Father doesn't do that, Wei Chen said, watching his father's retreating back with something between confusion and suspicion. Father doesn't bring food to anyone, not even us. Before Lin Feng could respond, footsteps approached from the other side of the courtyard. The second brother, Zhai Yan, walked over with his arms crossed, his expression sharp and calculating, nothing like his younger brother's easy smile. Careful, Zhai Yan said, his eyes flicking toward Lin Feng. Father doesn't hand out kindness for free. Everything he gives, he expects something back. I didn't ask for anything, Lin Feng said honestly. That's exactly the problem, Zhai Yan replied, voice low. You didn't ask, and yet here we are. The oldest brother, Bo Ren, joined them last, his presence heavier and quieter than his brother's. He didn't say anything at first, just looked at Lin Feng with an expression that was hard to read, somewhere between curiosity and warning. You should be careful, Bo Ren finally said. This family doesn't let people go easily. Once you're in, you're in. Lin Feng laughed nervously, unsure if he was joking. It's marriage, not a prison. None of the brothers laughed back. The silence stretched a little too long enough for Lin Feng to feel it settle uncomfortably in his chest. He looked between the three brothers, each one watching him with a different kind of intensity, and for the first time since arriving here, a small seed of unease planted itself in his stomach. He thought back to why he had agreed to this marriage in the first place. Not for love, not even for money, despite what the rumors said. He had agreed because he needed protection, needed a name powerful enough to keep certain people away from him, people from his past who wanted him silenced permanently. The Jian family had offered exactly that kind of protection, no questions asked. He hadn't expected the protection to feel this personal. Later that evening, as the sky turned soft shades of orange and purple, Lin Feng found himself back in the garden alone, watching the last of the cherry blossoms fall in the dim light. He heard footsteps behind him and turned, expecting one of the brothers again. Instead, it was Jian Hao. You come here every evening, Jian Hao said, standing a respectful distance away. How do you know that? Lin Feng asked. I know everything that happens in this house, Jian Hao said simply, no arrogance in his tone, just fact. Lin Feng looked down at the ground, unsure what to say. The air between them felt heavier than it should, thick with things neither of them said out loud. Are you regretting this marriage? Jian Hao asked suddenly, his voice quieter than before. Lin Feng hesitated. I don't know yet. Jian Hao nodded slowly, as if he expected that answer. Good, he said, because I don't plan on letting you regret it. Before Lin Feng could ask what that meant, Jian Hao turned and walked back toward the house, leaving Lin Feng standing alone under the falling blossoms, heart pounding for reasons he couldn't fully explain. Somewhere behind the garden wall, unseen by either of them, 3 pairs of eyes watched the exchange in complete silence. 3 weeks passed since Lin Feng first stepped into the Jian estate, and slowly the fear in his chest had started to soften into something else, something he didn't have a name for yet. He no longer flinched when Jian Hao entered a room. He no longer counted the steps to the nearest door out of habit. He had even started laughing at Wei Chen's jokes, the real kind of laugh, not the polite kind he used with strangers. It was a quiet afternoon when everything changed. Lin Feng was in the eastern garden, kneeling beside a patch of herbs he had started growing himself, something small to keep his hands busy and his mind calm. The sun was warm on his back, and for a moment he almost forgot where he was, almost forgot the weight of the name he now carried. Then he heard the gate creak open behind him. He turned, expecting a servant, but instead saw a man he didn't recognize standing at the entrance to the garden, dressed in plain traveling clothes, dust on his boots like he had walked a long way to get here. The man's eyes found Lin Feng immediately, and something in his expression made Lin Feng's stomach drop before a single word was spoken. "There you are," the man said, voice low and rough. "Took me long enough to find you." Lin Feng slowly stood up, wiping his hands on his robe, heart suddenly pounding. "I don't know you." "No," the man said, stepping closer, "but you know the people I work for." The words hit Lin Feng like cold water. He took a step back without meaning to, his mind flashing to faces from his past he had spent years trying to forget, people he thought he had left behind when he crossed into giant territory. "You shouldn't be here," Lin Feng said, voice shaking despite his effort to sound steady. "And you shouldn't have run," the man replied. "Debts don't disappear just because you hide behind a big family name." Before Lin Feng could respond, footsteps approached fast from the garden path, and within seconds Wei Chen appeared, sword already drawn, his usual playful expression replaced by something sharp and cold. "Who are you?" Wei Chen said, not a question, a demand. The stranger's eyes flicked between Lin Feng and Wei Chen, calculating something. "This doesn't concern the giant family. This is between me and him." "Wrong," Wei Chen said. "Anything that concerns him concerns us." The stranger's jaw tightened, and for a moment Lin Feng thought there would be violence right there in the garden. Instead, the man reached into his coat and pulled out a folded piece of paper, tossing it onto the ground near Lin Feng's feet. "Read it," the man said. "Then decide if you still want to hide behind these walls." He turned and walked away without another word, disappearing through the gate as quickly as he had come. Wei Chen moved to chase after him, but Lin Feng grabbed his arm, stopping him. "Let him go," Lin Feng said quietly. "Please." Wei Chen hesitated, sword still raised, then slowly lowered it, watching Lin Feng's face carefully. "You know him." "I know who sent him," Lin Feng said, voice barely above a whisper. He bent down and picked up the paper, hands trembling slightly as he unfolded it. His eyes moved over the words quickly, and with every line the color drained further from his face. Wei Chen watched him, saying nothing, giving him the space to read. When Lin Feng finished, he folded the paper again slowly, staring down at it like it might disappear if he looked away. "What does it say?" Wei Chen asked gently. Lin Feng didn't answer right away. He looked up at the cherry blossom trees swaying above them, then back down at the paper in his hand. "It says they know where I am now," he finally said. "It says I have 7 days to pay back what I owe, or they come and take it from me directly." "Take what?" Wei Chen asked, though something in his voice suggested he already feared the answer. Lin Feng's throat tightened. "Whatever they decide is equal to the debt." Silence settled between them, heavy and uncomfortable. Somewhere in the distance, a bird called out, breaking the stillness for just a second before quiet returned. "You need to tell father," Wei Chen said finally. "No," Lin Feng said quickly, panic rising in his chest. "No, please don't tell him." "Lin Feng. If he finds out the real reason I married into this family," Lin Feng said, voice cracking slightly, "he'll know I used him. He'll know none of this was ever about him at all." Wei Chen studied him for a long moment, something unreadable passing behind his eyes. "You still think that's true?" Lin Feng blinked, confused. "What?" "That none of this is about him," Wei Chen said quietly. "Because from where I'm standing, it doesn't look that way anymore." Before Lin Feng could respond, A third voice cut through the garden, calm but firm. "What doesn't look that way anymore?" Both of them turned sharply to see Jian Hao standing at the garden entrance, arms crossed, eyes moving between Wei Chen's tense expression and the folded paper still clutched in Lin Feng's hand. Neither of them had heard him approach. "Father, it's nothing," Wei Chen started, but Jian Hao's eyes were already locked on Lin Feng, and the look on his face made it clear he wasn't going to accept that answer. "Give me the paper," Jian Hao said, voice low. Lin Feng's hand tightened around it instinctively. "It's not important." "Lin Feng," Jian Hao's voice dropped even lower, something dangerous simmering just beneath the calm surface. "Give me the paper." For a moment, neither of them moved, the tension between them stretching so tight it felt like something might snap. Then, slowly, Lin Feng held out his hand, letting Jian Hao take the paper from his fingers. Jian Hao unfolded it and read in silence, his expression unreadable, though the muscle in his jaw tightened with every line. When he finished, he folded it again carefully, his eyes lifting to meet Lin Feng's. "You have debts to the High Wing Organization," Jian Hao said, not a question. Lin Feng's stomach dropped completely. He knew that name. Of course Jian Hao knew that name. Everyone in the province feared the High Wing, a network of smugglers and enforcers who collected on debts in ways that left little room for mercy. "I was going to handle it myself," Lin Feng said quietly, eyes fixed on the ground. "I didn't want this to become your problem." "It became my problem the moment you became my husband," Jian Hao said simply. Lin Feng's head snapped up, surprised by the certainty in his voice. "You don't owe me anything. This marriage was never real, not the way you think." "Stop," Jian Hao said, cutting him off, voice firm but not unkind. "I don't care why you agreed to this marriage in the beginning. I care what happens next." Lin Feng stared at him, unsure what to say, his chest tight with something between fear and disbelief. "They gave me 7 days," Lin Feng said quietly. "Then we have 7 days," Jian Hao said. "To do what?" Jian Hao's eyes hardened, something cold and unshakable settling into his expression. "To make sure they understand exactly who they are dealing with." Wei Chen let out a low breath beside them, glancing at his father with something close to disbelief. "Father, the High Wing doesn't back down easily. If we push them, this could get—" "I know exactly what this could become," Jian Hao interrupted, voice steady. "But no one threatens what belongs to this family and walks away without consequence." Lin Feng felt something tighten in his throat, a strange mix of fear and disbelief, and something warmer he didn't know how to name yet. "Why?" he asked quietly. "Why would you do this for me?" Jian Hao was quiet for a long moment, his eyes studying Lin Feng's face carefully, as if searching for the right words, or perhaps deciding whether to say them at all. "Because 3 weeks ago," he finally said, "I made a promise in front of everyone I know, and I don't break promises." He turned to walk away, robes sweeping behind him, but paused at the garden gate, glancing back one last time. "Pack nothing," Jian Hao said. "You're not going anywhere, not without me." He disappeared through the gate, leaving Lin Feng standing frozen in the garden, heart pounding loud enough to drown out the wind moving through the cherry blossoms above him. Wei Chen let out a low whistle, shaking his head slowly. 7 days, he muttered. "This is going to be a very long week." Lin Feng barely heard him. He was still staring at the empty gate, replaying Jian Hao's words over and over in his mind, wondering, for the first time since arriving at this house, if perhaps he had misunderstood everything about the man he married. The 7 days moved faster than Lin Feng expected, each one heavier than the last. On the first day, Jian Hao sent letters to 3 neighboring sects, quiet requests for information about the High Wing's recent movements. On the second day, he stopped attending his usual meetings, choosing instead to stay close to the estate, close to Lin Feng, though he never said why out loud. By the third day, guards had doubled at every gate, and even the servants moved with a new kind of alertness, eyes flicking toward shadows that hadn't seemed dangerous before. Lin Feng noticed all of it. He noticed, and he said nothing, carrying a quiet guilt in his chest that grew heavier with each passing hour. On the fourth night, unable to sleep, he wandered into the study, hopping to find a book to distract his mind. Instead, he found Jian Hao awake at his desk, candlelight flickering across old maps and letters spread out before him. "You should be resting," Jian Hao said without looking up. "So should you," Lin Feng replied. Jian Hao allowed a small, tired smile, the first Lin Feng had seen from him in days. "Come here." Lin Feng hesitated, then stepped closer, standing beside the desk. Up close, he could see the dark circles under Jian Hao's eyes, the tension in his shoulders that never seemed to fully leave. "You've been planning something," Lin Feng said quietly. "Something you haven't told me." Jian Hao leaned back in his chair, studying him carefully. The high wing doesn't respond to threats, they respond to leverage. "What kind of leverage?" "The kind that makes them realize hurting you costs them more than they gain." Lin Feng frowned. "How?" Jian Hao was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. "There is a man among their ranks who owes our family an old debt, one he has spent years trying to forget. Tomorrow, I intend to remind him." Something about the calm way he said it sent a chill down Lin Feng's spine. "Is that safe?" "Nothing about this is safe," Jian Hao admitted, "but it is necessary." Lin Feng looked down at the maps scattered across the desk, tracing invisible lines with his eyes, thinking of every reason he shouldn't let this man risk anything for him. "You don't have to do this," he said softly. "I could still leave. Take the debt with me. Keep this away from your family." Jian Hao's expression shifted instantly, something sharp flashing behind his eyes. "Say that again." "I heard what you said." Jian Hao stood up from the chair, his voice quiet but firm. "You think leaving solves anything?" "It keeps you safe," Lin Feng said. "It keeps your son safe." "And what about you?" Jian Hao asked, stepping closer. "Does anyone keep you safe in that plan?" Lin Feng opened his mouth, then closed it again, unsure how to answer. Jian Hao studied his face for a long moment, something softening slightly in his expression. "I told you already, I don't break promises, not to you, not to anyone." Before Lin Feng could respond, the study door opened suddenly, and Jia Yan stepped in, his expression tight with urgency. "Father," he said, "we have a problem." Jian Hao's posture straightened immediately. "What happened?" "The messenger you sent to the northern sect never returned," Jia Yan said, "and one of our patrol guards found this near the eastern wall." He held out a small folded cloth, and Jian Hao took it carefully, unfolding it to reveal a single black feather, tied with a thin red string. The room went completely still. "What is that?" Lin Feng asked quietly, though something in his gut already feared the answer. "A warning," Jian Hao said, voice low. "The High Wing's way of saying they know exactly where we stand and they aren't afraid of us." "They wouldn't attack the estate directly," Jia Yan said, though his voice lacked full confidence. "Not without more men." "They don't need many men," Jian Hao said, "just the right target." His eyes lifted to Lin Feng, and for the first time, Lin Feng saw something close to real fear behind the calm exterior Jian Hao always wore like armor. The next morning, everything changed. Lin Feng woke to shouting outside his window, sharp and urgent, followed by the sound of steel clashing against steel. He rushed outside to find chaos in the main courtyard, guards fighting against masked intruders who had somehow slipped past the outer walls during the night. Wei Chen was already in the middle of it, sword flashing as he fought two men at once, while Bo Ren held the eastern flank, calm and precise despite the danger around him. "Lin Feng, get back inside," Jia Yan shouted, appearing beside him, blocking a strike aimed toward them both. But Lin Feng's eyes were locked on one figure across the courtyard, a masked man dragging a struggling servant toward the outer gate, using her as a shield against the guards trying to stop him. Without thinking, Lin Feng ran forward. "Lin Feng, wait!" Jia Yan's voice cut through the chaos, but it was too late. Lin Feng grabbed a fallen guard's spear and swung it hard toward the masked man's legs, catching him off balance just enough for the servant to break free. The masked man turned toward Lin Feng instead, blade raised, and for one terrifying second, Lin Feng thought this was how it ended. Then Jian Hao appeared between them, blocking the strike with his own blade, the impact sending sparks into the morning air. "Get behind me," Jian Hao said, voice hard as steel. Lin Feng obeyed instantly, heart pounding as he watched Jian Hao move with brutal efficiency, disarming the masked man in 3 swift strikes before knocking him unconscious to the ground. The fighting ended almost as quickly as it began, the remaining intruders fleeing over the walls once it became clear the attack had failed. In the aftermath, as guards secured the estate and tended to the wounded, Jian Hao turned to Lin Feng, gripping his shoulders firmly, eyes scanning him for injuries. "Are you hurt?" Jian Hao asked, voice tight with something raw and unguarded. "I'm fine," Lin Feng said, though his hands were shaking. "I'm fine, I promise." Jian Hao pulled him into a tight embrace, something he had never done before, holding him like he was afraid Lin Feng might disappear if he let go. "You could have died," Jian Hao said quietly, voice muffled against Lin Feng's shoulder. "Running toward danger like that." "I couldn't just watch," Lin Feng whispered. "You never think of your own safety," Jian Hao murmured. "Not once since the day you arrived." Lin Feng pulled back slightly, searching Jian Hao's face, seeing something there he hadn't fully allowed himself to notice until now. "Why does that matter so much to you?" Jian Hao's jaw tightened, and for a long moment he said nothing, simply staring into Lin Feng's eyes like he was fighting some internal battle. "Because somewhere between the wedding hall and this morning," Jian Hao finally said, voice low, "I stopped seeing this as a marriage of convenience." Lin Feng's breath caught in his throat. "What are you saying?" Before Jian Hao could answer, Bo Ren approached quickly, expression grim. "Father, we captured one of them alive. You need to hear what he's saying." Jian Hao's expression hardened instantly, the softness from moments ago locking away behind his usual composure. "Bring him to the main hall." He turned to Lin Feng one last time. "Stay close to me. Whatever happens next, don't leave my side." Inside the main hall, the captured intruder knelt on the floor, wrists bound, face bruised from the fight. Jian Hao stood before him, arms crossed, expression cold enough to make the man flinch. "Who sent you?" Jian Hao demanded. The man laughed weakly, blood on his lips. "You already know who sent us." "Say it anyway." "The High Wing," the man said, "but that's not the part you should be worried about." Jian Hao's eyes narrowed. "Explain." The man looked up, meeting Lin Feng's eyes directly, something almost pitying in his expression. "Ask him," the man said, nodding toward Lin Feng, "why the High Wing wanted him alive so badly in the first place." The room went silent. "What is he talking about?" Jian Hao asked, turning to Lin Feng slowly. Lin Feng felt the blood drain from his face, old memories rushing back all at once, memories he had buried deep enough to almost forget. "Lin Feng," Jian Hao said again, voice quieter now, almost afraid of the answer. "What is he talking about?" Lin Feng closed his eyes briefly, feeling the weight of years finally catching up to him. "There's something I never told you," Lin Feng said slowly, "about who I really am and why the High Wing has been hunting me long before I ever came to this house." The main hall felt colder than it had a moment ago, though nothing about the room had changed, except the weight of what Lin Feng was about to say. "Lin Feng," Jian Hao said again, his voice quiet, careful, like he was approaching something fragile. "Tell me." Lin Feng's hands trembled at his sides. He looked at the captured man kneeling on the floor, then back at Jian Hao, and finally at the three brothers standing near the doorway, all watching him with the same unreadable stillness. "My birth name isn't Lin Feng," he said slowly. "It's the name I chose for myself after I ran." "Ran from what?" Bo Ren asked quietly. Lin Feng swallowed hard. "From my family, my real family. The High Wing didn't come looking for a random debtor. They came looking for the last surviving heir of the man who used to run half their operation before he was betrayed and killed by his own people." The room stayed silent, except for the sound of wind moving through the open doors. "My father was the one who built the High Wing into what it is today," Lin Feng continued, voice shaking but steady enough to keep going. "When he died, everyone assumed his bloodline died with him. I let them believe that. I changed my name. I ran as far as I could. I thought if I disappeared long enough, they would forget I existed." "But they didn't forget," Jian Hao said. "No," Lin Feng whispered. "Someone recognized me a few months ago. That's when the debts started, except it was never really about money. It was about control. Whoever controls me controls a claim to what's left of my father's old territory and hidden wealth." Jian Hao's jaw tightened, his eyes sharp with something between anger and disbelief. "And you married into my family, knowing all of this, and said nothing." "I didn't think it would follow me here," Lin Feng said. "I thought your name would be enough protection to make them give up." "You used us," Jia Yan said coldly from the doorway. "You used father's name as a shield, knowing it could bring exactly this kind of danger to our door." "Jia Yan," Wei Chen said quietly, a warning in his voice. "No, let him say it," Lin Feng said, eyes dropping to the floor. "He's right. I did use this marriage. In the beginning, that's all it was to me, a way to survive." The captured man on the floor let out a weak, mocking laugh. "How touching," he muttered. "A little confession before everything falls apart." Jian Hao's eyes snapped to him, cold and sharp. "You'll speak when I ask you to." The man smiled through bloodied lips. "Doesn't matter now. My people already know he's here. This was never about capturing him quietly. This was about confirming his location before the real attack comes." "What real attack?" Bo Ren demanded. "The High Wing doesn't send small groups for someone this valuable," the man said. "Tonight, when the moon is highest, they come with everything they have. And they won't stop until they have him, dead or alive." Silence dropped over the hall like a blade. "Lock down the estate," Jian Hao ordered immediately, turning to his sons. "Every gate, every wall, double the guards, now." Bo Ren and Jia Yan moved quickly, disappearing to relay the orders, while Wei Chen lingered a moment longer, glancing between his father and Lin Feng before finally following his brothers out. Once the hall emptied, leaving only Jian Hao, Lin Feng, and the guards holding the captured man, silence settled heavy between them. "Say something," Lin Feng finally whispered. "Please, anything." Jian Hao stepped closer, his expression unreadable, searching Lin Feng's face like he was trying to solve something impossible. "Why didn't you trust me with this?" "Because I was afraid," Lin Feng admitted, voice breaking slightly. "Afraid that if you knew the truth, you would see me as a burden, a danger, something to remove before it destroyed everything you built." "Do you still believe that?" Jian Hao asked quietly, "even now?" Lin Feng looked up at him, eyes glistening. "I don't know what to believe anymore." Jian Hao reached out, gently lifting Lin Feng's chin with 2 fingers, forcing their eyes to meet. "Then let me make it simple for you," he said, voice low and steady. "I don't care what name you were born with. I don't care what blood runs through your veins or what darkness follows you. None of that changes what I already decided the moment I took your hand at that wedding." "Jian Hao." "You are mine to protect," Jian Hao said firmly. "Not because of a promise made in front of witnesses, Because somewhere along the way, protecting you stopped feeling like a duty and started feeling like the only thing that matters. Lin Feng's breath caught, tears finally spilling over despite his effort to hold them back, even if it costs you everything. Especially then, Jian Hao said. That night, as the moon rose high and full over the estate, the High Wing arrived exactly as promised, a small army moving silently through the darkness, surrounding the outer walls. But this time, the Jian family was ready. Guards lined every wall, torches lit along the perimeter, weapons drawn and waiting. Bo Ren commanded the eastern defense, Jia Yan the western, while Wei Chen stayed close to the main gate, sword gripped tightly in both hands. Jian Hao stood at the center courtyard, Lin Feng beside him despite every argument to keep him hidden inside. You should be safe inside, Jian Hao said one final time. I'm done hiding, Lin Feng said, gripping a short blade Wei Chen had given him earlier. Whatever happens tonight, I face it standing beside you. The first wave of attackers hit the western wall hard, the sound of clashing steel echoing across the estate. Jia Yan's forces held strong, pushing back the initial assault with practiced precision. Then the real leader of the High Wing appeared, stepping through the broken gate with unnerving calm, a tall man with cold eyes and a scar running down one side of his face. Lin Feng, the man called out, voice carrying easily across the courtyard. It's been a long time since I last saw you hiding behind your father's shadow. Now look at you, hiding behind someone else's family instead. I'm not hiding anymore, Lin Feng said, stepping forward despite Jian Hao's hand tightening on his arm. The man's eyes shifted to Jian Hao, studying him with mild curiosity. The infamous Jian Hao, I've heard stories, cold, ruthless, willing to bury anyone standing between him and what he wants. You heard correctly, Jian Hao said, voice deadly calm. Then you understand, the man said, that I'm not leaving without him. Dead or alive, his bloodline settles an old debt this family has ignored for far too long. He belongs to my family now, Jian Hao said, stepping fully in front of Lin Feng. If you want him, you'll have to go through every single person standing in this courtyard first. The man smiled coldly. That can be arranged. The battle that followed was fast and brutal, blades flashing under moonlight, shouts echoing through the estate as Jian Hao's forces fought with everything they had. Wei Chen fought at the gate with fierce determination, Bo Ren and Jia Yan holding their flanks with unshaken discipline. Jian Hao moved through the chaos like a storm given human form, cutting down attacker after attacker, always keeping himself between danger and Lin Feng. When the High Wing leader finally broke through the outer defense, blade aimed directly at Lin Feng, Jian Hao intercepted the strike at the last possible second, their swords locking together in a shower of sparks. You will not touch him, Jian Hao growled, pushing back with enough force to stagger the man backward. He belongs to my family's legacy, the man snarled, lunging forward again. He belongs to no one but himself, Jian Hao said, deflecting the strike and countering with brutal precision, and I will bury anyone who tries to claim otherwise. The fight ended moments later, Jian Hao disarming the man completely, blade pressed firmly against his throat, the courtyard falling silent except for heavy breathing and the distant crackle of torches. Call off your men, Jian Hao said, voice low and final, or this ends right here. Faced with certain death, the High Wing leader raised a shaking hand, signaling retreat. One by one, the remaining attackers withdrew into the darkness beyond the estate walls, leaving the courtyard finally, completely silent. Lin Feng rushed forward the moment it was over, gripping Jian Hao's arm tightly, checking for wounds with trembling hands. You're safe, Jian Hao said softly, pulling him into a tight embrace despite the blood and exhaustion clinging to both of them. It's over now. Lin Feng buried his face against Jian Hao's chest, tears finally breaking free. I thought I was going to lose you tonight. You will never lose me, Jian Hao whispered against his hair. Not tonight, not ever again. Morning came softer than usual, sunlight spilling gently over the estate as servants moved quietly, sweeping away the last signs of the battle from the night before. Cherry blossoms still drifted from the trees, as if nothing in the world had changed, though everything, for Lin Feng, felt different now. He sat on the edge of the garden bench, watching Wei Chen attempt to bandage his own arm badly, wincing every time he pulled the cloth too tight. "You're doing that wrong," Lin Feng said, standing up and walking over. "I've done this 100 times, Wei Chen argued, though he let Lin Feng take the cloth from his hands anyway. 100 times wrong, apparently, Lin Feng said, smiling as he wrapped the bandage properly. Wei Chen laughed, wincing slightly, but the sound was warm and easy, nothing like the tension that had filled the estate the night before. "You know, for someone with a scary secret family history, you're surprisingly good at fixing bandages." "I had a lot of practice patching myself up," Lin Feng said quietly, "back when I was running." Wei Chen's smile softened. "You're not running anymore." Lin Feng looked up, meeting his eyes. "No," he said, "I'm not." Across the courtyard, Jia Yan approached, arms crossed, though his usual sharpness had eased into something closer to quiet respect. He stopped in front of Lin Feng, studying him for a long moment. "I said some harsh things yesterday," Jia Yan said finally. "You said true things," Lin Feng replied. "I did use this marriage to protect myself. I won't pretend otherwise." "Maybe," Jia Yan said, "but you also stood in that courtyard last night, facing down an army instead of running when you had every chance to disappear again." He paused, something almost like a smile tugging at his mouth. "That's not something someone does if they don't actually care about the people around them." Lin Feng felt his throat tighten unexpectedly. "Does that mean you forgive me?" "It means," Jia Yan said, "that father clearly picked well, even if none of us understood it at first." Before Lin Feng could respond, Bo Ren joined them, carrying a small tray with tea, setting it down on the garden table without a word, though the gesture itself said enough. Bo Ren had never been a man of many words, but his actions always carried more weight than speech ever could. "Thank you," Lin Feng said softly. Bo Ren nodded once, then glanced toward the main hall. "Father's been waiting for you, alone, all morning." Lin Feng's heart skipped slightly. "Is he angry?" "Does he usually look angry when he's waiting for you?" Wei Chen asked, grinning again despite his bandaged arm. Lin Feng shook his head slowly, standing up, smoothing down his slightly torn robes before making his way toward the main hall, leaving the three brothers behind him, watching with quiet, knowing smiles. He found Jian Hao standing near the tall windows of the main hall, sunlight cutting soft lines across the wooden floor, his posture relaxed for the first time in what felt like weeks. "You wanted to see me," Lin Feng said, stepping inside. Jian Hao turned, and something in his expression made Lin Feng's breath catch. Gentler than anything he had seen from this man before, all the sharp edges softened into something warm. "I spoke with the High Wing leader before he retreated," Jian Hao said. "Through proper channels, not violence. He's agreed to release all claims against you, permanently, in exchange for certain concessions regarding old territory disputes." Lin Feng blinked, surprised. "How?" "Because I made it clear," Jian Hao said, "that pursuing you further would cost them far more than whatever they hoped to gain. And because, quite honestly, most of them never wanted this fight in the first place. They were following old orders from people long dead." Relief flooded through Lin Feng so suddenly his knees felt weak. "It's really over." "It's over," Jian Hao confirmed. "You're free, completely. No more debts, no more threats, no more looking over your shoulder." Lin Feng let out a shaky breath, tears gathering unexpectedly at the edges of his eyes. "I don't know how to thank you for this." "You don't need to thank me," Jian Hao said, stepping closer, reaching up to gently wipe away a tear before it could fall. I told you already. Protecting you was never a debt to be repaid. It was a choice I made, and one I'd make again without hesitation. Even knowing everything now, Lin Feng asked softly, even knowing who I really am. Especially knowing that, Jian Hao said. Because the man who stood beside me in that courtyard last night, facing down an army instead of running, that man is exactly who I married. Blood and name mean nothing next to that. Lin Feng felt something shift completely inside his chest, the last remaining wall he had built around his heart finally crumbling away. I think, he said slowly, somewhere between the wedding hall and last night, I stopped seeing this as a marriage of convenience too. Jian Hao's eyes softened even further, something almost boyish flickering behind his usually stern expression. Is that so? I was scared to admit it, Lin Feng continued. Scared that caring about you, about this family, would only make losing everything hurt worse if it ever fell apart. And now, Jian Hao asked quietly. Now, Lin Feng said, stepping closer, I don't want to imagine my life without any of you in it. Not you, not Wei Chen's terrible jokes, not Jia Yan's suspicious glares, not even Bo Ren's silent tea deliveries. Jian Hao laughed softly, a rare, genuine sound that made Lin Feng's heart swell with warmth. The tea delivery was Bo Ren's way of saying he approves of you, in case you were wondering. He doesn't waste tea on people he dislikes. Good to know, Lin Feng said, smiling through the last of his tears. Jian Hao reached out, gently cupping Lin Feng's face in both hands, foreheads resting together in a quiet, intimate moment neither of them rushed to end. I once told you, Jian Hao murmured, that you are not leaving this family, not now, not ever. I remember, Lin Feng whispered. I meant it as a warning back then, Jian Hao said, but I mean it differently now, not as a demand, as a promise. I never want you to leave, not because I won't let you, because I hope someday you won't want to. Lin Feng closed the small distance between them, resting his head against Jian Hao's chest, listening to the steady heartbeat beneath layers of dark red and gold robes. I don't want to leave, he whispered. Not now, not ever. Outside, cherry blossoms continued drifting gently across the courtyard, carried by a soft afternoon breeze, settling over stone paths that had seen both danger and healing within the same turning of days. Weeks later, the estate held a small quiet celebration, nothing like the grand, tense wedding that had first brought Lin Feng into this family. This time, there were no whispers of fear among the guests, no eyes lowered in intimidation. Instead, laughter filled the courtyard, Wei Chen telling embarrassing stories about his father's younger years, Jia Yan rolling his eyes but smiling anyway, Bo Ren quietly refilling everyone's cups without being asked. Jian Hao stood beside Lin Feng near the same cherry blossom trees where this story had first begun, watching his sons laugh together, watching Lin Feng smile freely for what felt like the first time since his arrival. Any regrets? Jian Hao asked quietly, echoing the question from all those weeks ago. Lin Feng smiled, leaning into him comfortably. None, he said, not a single one. And for the first time in longer than either of them could remember, the Jian family estate felt, truly, completely like home. Lesson: true belonging isn't about where you come from or what you're running from. It's about the people who choose to stand beside you anyway. Thank you so much for watching this story all the way to the end. If it made you feel something, please consider subscribing. It truly helps me keep bringing you more stories just like this one. See you in the next story.